What if I told you that the reason you keep getting hurt isn't because the world is cruel, but because you haven't yet discovered who you truly are? What if the pain you experience daily, from criticism, rejection, disappointment, is actually pointing toward a profound truth about your inner landscape that you've been avoiding? Today, we're going to explore one of Carl Jung's most revolutionary insights: that emotional invulnerability isn't about building walls or numbing yourself. It's about something far more radical. It's about becoming so intimately acquainted with your own psyche that nothing external can truly wound you. But be warned, this journey requires you to question everything you think you know about strength, protection, and your own identity. If you're ready to discover what Jung called the truth that sets you free, then let's begin this descent into the depths of consciousness. The illusion of external power. You've been living under a dangerous illusion, the belief that other people have the power to hurt you. Every time someone criticizes you, ignores you, or betrays you, you experience genuine pain. And in that moment, you unconsciously assign them tremendous power over your inner world. But Jung understood something most people never realize. External events only have the power you unconsciously give them. The person who insults you isn't reaching into your chest and squeezing your heart. The friend who abandons you isn't literally tearing pieces from your soul. What's actually happening is far more subtle and profound. These external triggers are activating something that already exists within your unconscious mind. Unprocessed wounds, unexamined fears, and parts of yourself you've never fully integrated. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This isn't just philosophical wisdom. It's a roadmap to freedom. Every person who has the power to hurt you is showing you exactly where your unconscious vulnerabilities lie. Think about it. Why does one person's opinion devastate you while another person's identical words barely register? Why does rejection from certain people feel like death, while rejection from others feels insignificant? The difference isn't in the external event. It's in what that event awakens within your unconscious landscape. This is why some people seem naturally resilient while others crumble at the slightest criticism. It's not about genetics or luck. It's about the degree to which they've explored and integrated their own unconscious material. The shadow's hidden influence. Jung discovered that we all carry what he called the shadow, the collection of traits, impulses, and aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or pushed into unconsciousness. And here's where it gets interesting. The shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It continues to influence your life from the darkness. Every time you have an outsized emotional reaction to someone, you're encountering your own shadow projected onto them. The person who makes you furious with their arrogance is reflecting your own unacknowledged arrogance. The individual whose neediness repulses you is showing you your own disowned neediness. But there's something even more crucial happening here. The reason these encounters hurt so much is that they're forcing you to confront parts of yourself you've spent years trying to avoid. Your psyche is literally having an allergic reaction to its own rejected material. Jung called this projection, the unconscious process of attributing your own unacknowledged qualities to others. And until you reclaim these projections, you remain emotionally at the mercy of anyone who carries the energy of your shadow. This is why you can spend years in therapy talking about your childhood, understanding your patterns, and developing coping strategies, yet still find yourself devastated by certain people or situations. You're trying to solve the problem at the level of the ego, the conscious mind, while the real issue lies in the unconscious shadow realm. The path to true emotional freedom requires something far more radical than self-improvement. It requires what Jung called shadow work, the deliberate process of identifying, acknowledging, and integrating the disowned aspects of yourself. The process of integration. Integration isn't about becoming a better person or eliminating your flaws. It's about becoming a whole person, someone who can acknowledge and accept all aspects of their personality without being unconsciously controlled by them. When you begin to integrate your shadow, something remarkable happens. The qualities in others that used to trigger intense reactions become neutral. You can observe arrogance, neediness, anger, or manipulation in others without feeling personally attacked or emotionally destabilized. This isn't because you've become cold or detached. It's because you've recognized these same qualities within yourself and made peace with them. You've stopped fighting an internal war, which means external battles can no longer pull you into unconscious reactivity. Jung described this process as individuation, the journey toward becoming who you truly are rather than who you think you should be. And individuation requires something that most people find terrifying: the willingness to be disliked for your authentic self rather than loved for your false persona. Most of your emotional pain comes from trying to maintain an image, the persona Jung wrote about extensively. You want to be seen as strong, successful, kind, intelligent, or attractive. And every time reality contradicts this image, you experience it as a personal attack. But what if you stopped trying to maintain any image at all? What if you became so comfortable with your own contradictions, flaws, and humanity that other people's opinions simply couldn't destabilize you? This is what Jung meant when he spoke about individuation. It's not about perfection. It's about wholeness. It's about integrating all aspects of yourself so completely that nothing external can shake your fundamental sense of who you are. The paradox of vulnerability. Here's where Jung's insights become truly paradoxical. The path to becoming emotionally invulnerable requires you to become completely vulnerable first. You must face everything you've been avoiding, acknowledge everything you've been denying, and feel everything you've been numbing. This sounds counterintuitive because we're conditioned to believe that vulnerability equals weakness. But Jung understood that trying to avoid your own psychological material is what keeps you trapped in reactivity. Every emotion you refuse to feel, every aspect of yourself you refuse to acknowledge, becomes a trigger point that others can unconsciously activate. True strength comes from what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. Instead of trying to be only good, strong, or positive, you learn to contain your full spectrum of human experience. You become someone who can feel anger without being consumed by it, experience sadness without drowning in it, and acknowledge fear without being paralyzed by it. This process requires what Jung termed active imagination, the practice of consciously engaging with your unconscious material rather than being unconsciously controlled by it. When you feel triggered by someone, instead of immediately reacting or suppressing the feeling, you pause and ask, "What is this reaction teaching me about myself?" You begin to see every emotional trigger as information rather than attack. Every person who pushes your buttons becomes a teacher, showing you exactly where your unconscious material lies. And gradually, as you integrate these discoveries, you find that fewer and fewer external situations have the power to knock you off center. The birth of authentic power. As you progress in this inner work, something extraordinary begins to emerge. Authentic power. This isn't the power to control others or manipulate situations. It's the power that comes from being so grounded in your own truth that external circumstances lose their ability to define your internal state. Jung wrote about this as the emergence of the self. Not the ego self that seeks approval and fears rejection, but the deeper self that exists beyond personality, achievement, or social identity. When you begin to identify with this deeper self, you discover a stability that doesn't depend on anything external. People often mistake this for emotional numbness or detachment, but it's actually the opposite. When you're no longer unconsciously reactive, you become capable of genuine emotional intimacy. You can feel deeply without losing yourself. You can love without desperation. You can be hurt without being destroyed. This is what Jung meant when he spoke about individuation leading to authentic relationship. When you're no longer unconsciously projecting your shadow onto others, you can see them as they actually are rather than as carriers of your own psychological material. You stop needing others to be different than they are. You stop taking their behavior personally. You recognize that everyone is operating from their own unconscious patterns, their own wounded places, their own journey toward wholeness. This doesn't make you passive or accepting of mistreatment. If anything, it makes you clearer about boundaries because you're no longer confused about what belongs to you and what belongs to others. Living from the center. When you've done sufficient shadow work and integration, you begin to live from what Jung called the center, a place within yourself that remains stable regardless of external circumstances. This isn't a destination you reach once and maintain forever. It's an ongoing practice of returning to your authentic self whenever you notice you've been pulled into unconscious reactivity. From this centered place, you respond rather than react. You choose your emotional states rather than being chosen by them. You engage with life from a place of wholeness rather than from your wounds. This doesn't mean you never feel pain or that nothing ever affects you. It means that when pain arises, you have the capacity to meet it consciously rather than being overwhelmed by it. You can feel the full spectrum of human emotion without losing your essential stability. Jung called this psychological maturity, the ability to hold all of your human experience within a container of conscious awareness. And from this mature place, you discover something remarkable. The world hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has transformed completely. The same people who used to trigger you now seem to be operating in a different reality. Their words and actions, which once felt like personal attacks, now appear as expressions of their own unconscious patterns. You can have compassion for their suffering without taking on their pain as your own. The truth that reveals itself. So what is this truth that reveals itself when you no longer let anything hurt you? It's this. You were never actually being hurt by external circumstances. You were being hurt by your own unconscious material that external circumstances were activating. Once you recognize this, everything changes. Every trigger becomes a gift, showing you where you still have unconscious material to integrate. Every difficult person becomes a teacher, reflecting back aspects of yourself you haven't yet embraced. Every painful situation becomes an opportunity for deeper self-discovery. This is the ultimate freedom Jung pointed toward. Not freedom from life's difficulties, but freedom within them. Not immunity from pain, but the capacity to transform pain into wisdom. Not the ability to control others, but the power to remain centered within yourself, regardless of what others choose to do. When you truly understand this, you realize that emotional invulnerability was never about protecting yourself from the world. It was about becoming so integrated, so whole, so authentic, that nothing external could shake your fundamental sense of who you are. And from this place of integration, you finally become capable of the very thing you were seeking all along: genuine love, authentic connection, and the ability to remain yourself no matter what life brings. This is Jung's gift to us, the understanding that our deepest wounds contain our greatest potential for transformation, and that true strength comes not from avoiding our darkness, but from learning to dance with it. If this exploration of Jung's insights resonated with you, consider what parts of yourself you might still be avoiding. The journey toward emotional freedom isn't easy, but it's the most important work you'll ever do. Your authentic self is waiting on the other side of everything you're afraid to face.